For the sake of Emma's future, and just before her civil service interview, I took it upon myself to hang up on her ex-boyfriend, a man who had caused her to have 4 miscarriages. I thought I was doing her a favor. Little did I know, after she successfully secured the position, she discovered that my refusal to answer her ex's call led to him blocking her. Resentful, she harbored a grudge against me. In the end, she caught me off guard and pushed me into a river, drowning me. "You pathetic simp," she spat. "You ruined my love. I'll send you straight to hell." When I opened my eyes again, I was back in time on the day of Emma's civil service interview. This time, without hesitation, I answered the call and handed the phone to Emma just as she was about to enter the interview room. Ignoring the examiner's repeated reminders to begin, Emma, with tears streaming down her face, ran towards her ex-boyfriend outside the building. The announcement for candidates to enter the examination room rang out, but Victoria paid no heed. Defying the attempts of nearby staff to stop her, she grabbed the umbrella from my hand and dashed into the pouring rain. Onlookers murmured, "Oh my God, did she just leave? The interview is about to start." "Isn't that Victoria? She ranked first in the written exam. Is she really giving up her interview slot?" This position is so competitive, listening to their whispers and watching Victoria's silhouette disappear into the rain. I finally felt a sense of clarity. I had indeed been reborn. The person standing next to me asked, "Hey man, weren't you childhood friends with Victoria? Does she have some urgent matter? This job's really hard to get. Why didn't you try to stop her?" I waved him off dismissively. "We're not close. I don't meddle in other people's affairs anymore." That was the lesson I learned at the cost of my life and my past life. In the end, Victoria's departure was seen as a withdrawal from the interview process. Despite her first-place ranking in the written exam, she lost her chance at the civil service position. In my previous life, the same thing had happened. On the critical day of the interview, Victoria's deadbeat ex-boyfriend, Ethan, had called her. Wanting to ensure her focus on the interview, I had hung up the call. All I wanted was for her to succeed. However, after she secured the position, her first instinct was to reconcile with Ethan. When she called him, she discovered she'd been blocked. All that remained on her phone was a single text message: "Victoria, since you didn't answer my call, let's never see each other again." Victoria blamed me for ruining her chance at true love. She asked me to meet her by the river, her face twisted with rage. "Sincere, who gave you the right to interfere in my life? You bastard," she screamed. Before I could react, she shoved me into the rushing waters. "You pathetic simp," she shouted. "You ruined my love. I'll send you straight to hell." The river's current swept me away as I struggled to stay afloat. Submerged and gasping for air, I was consumed by the suffocating darkness. And just like that, my life came to a tragic and humiliating end. But I never expected to open my eyes again. I had been reborn, returned to the critical moment when Ethan had called Victoria. As the phone vibrated in my hand and Victoria prepared to enter the exam room, I made a different choice this time. I answered the call and handed the phone to her. Whatever Ethan said to her on the other end of the line, it left Victoria visibly shaken. She hesitated, but ultimately she made up her mind. Without a second thought, she abandoned the interview and rushed outside with the umbrella. It was as though she had completely forgotten I was standing there. This time, I watched coldly, making no attempt to intervene. In this life, I would let go of my savior complex and respect the choices of others. By the time I returned home, news had already spread throughout the small town. Victoria was going to marry Ethan. However, Victoria herself didn't come back. She only called her mother, Olivia, to tell her that she had given up the interview to marry Ethan. Upon hearing the news, Olivia fainted from grief. My own mother, after learning of the situation, sighed heavily. "Just like that, Sincere, Victoria's already getting married. Son, it's time to let it go. This just proves the two of you were never meant to be," she said gently. Mistaking my heavy heart for lingering feelings for Victoria, Victoria and I had grown up together. As kids, she loved clinging to me, following me around, her tiny voice calling me Cinny. The villagers often teased us, saying these two are so close, when Victoria grows up, she'll marry Sincere. As we got older and entered high school, Victoria blossomed into a beautiful young woman. Hearing those jokes again, I couldn't help but blush. That was when I realized I had fallen for the girl who had grown up by my side. Throughout high school, I kept my feelings hidden, quietly staying by her side. I brought her meals, reminded her to layer up on cold days, and helped her with her studies. We both got into the same college we had dreamed of attending together. She was radiant, a bright and cheerful young woman who illuminated my youth. But before I could confess my feelings, I discovered Victoria had already given her heart to someone else, to Ethan, a delinquent from the neighboring vocational school. One night, while walking back to campus, Victoria was followed by a creep. Ethan happened to be smoking by the wall, and he stepped in to save her. From then on, he pursued her relentlessly. Victoria, who had always been a good girl, couldn't resist Ethan's rebellious charm. She quickly fell for him. To spend more time with him, she started skipping classes, drinking, and partying. She even failed some of her final exams. I tried to talk her out of it, but back then, she was too enthralled by Ethan to listen to anyone. After a long night of clubbing, Victoria came back utterly exhausted. Irritated, she snapped, "Sincere, why do you have to lecture me so much? I worked my butt off to get into college. Can't I relax a little?" Looking at her heavily done smoky eye makeup and thick eyeliner, I realized I could no longer see the innocent girl she once was. Back when we had just started college, she had told me with such sincerity, "Cinny, let's promise to work hard together and get into grad school. I want us to stay as classmates." But that girl who said those words was long gone. I began to realize that I was losing Victoria completely. By the time we graduated, I had successfully followed through on my plan and secured a spot in graduate school. Victoria, however, had failed too many classes and even skipped so many that she nearly didn't graduate. It was only after I pleaded on her behalf and helped her cram for exams that she barely managed to get her diploma. Later, Ethan cheated on her and dumped her. Heartbroken, she withdrew from everything for a while. Eventually, she decided to aim for a government job. She had always been intelligent and hard-working, and as long as she put her mind to it, I knew she could succeed. She came to me, blushing like she used to as a child, asking for advice on how to prepare for the exams. Seeing her determination to move on from Ethan and rebuild her life, I was genuinely happy for her. I did everything I could to support her, helping her find resources and prepare for the tests. In the end, she passed the written exam with the highest score and advanced to the interview stage. The night before her interview, she was both nervous and excited. She told me she wanted me to be there with her on the big day. "Cinny, having you there will help me feel less anxious," she said. Looking at her face, which was slowly becoming clearer in my memory of our younger days, I smiled and agreed. In our past life, it rained heavily that day. Not wanting her to be late, I drove her to the interview. But despite all my efforts, I couldn't compete with a single phone call from Ethan. In fact, my entire being seemed to matter less to her than a single hair on Ethan's head. In this life, she abandoned the results of 6 months of hard work and threw away the advantage of her top-ranked written exam score, all for the sake of chasing love. Watching her disappear into the rain, I let out a heavy sigh. Perhaps this was for the best. From now on, we would go our separate ways. I returned home, my expression calm. However, I never expected Victoria's mother, Olivia, to show up at my doorstep first. I was in my room, changing a light bulb, when I heard her loud, angry voice outside. "Sincere, get out here, you need to give me an explanation today." Frowning, I stepped out of my room. My mom, who had just finished doing laundry, was on her way to hang the clothes. She looked at Olivia in surprise and asked, "Olivia, what's going on?" But Olivia shoved my mom, causing her to stumble. The laundry basket fell to the ground with a loud clang, and clothes scattered everywhere. I quickly rushed over to steady my mom and pick up the clothes. With a cold voice, I said, "Olivia, what are you doing?" She stood there with her hands on her hips, her tone overbearing. "I'm here to ask you if you were the one who persuaded Victoria to skip her interview. She's run off with that bastard again. Why didn't you stop her? Are you trying to ruin her life? I trusted you with her, and now you've let us all down." Olivia's yelling drew a small crowd of neighbors to our door. My mom, shocked at the accusation, defended me. "Olivia, what are you talking about? Sincere would never do something like that." I stepped in front of my mom and calmly told Olivia, "You're mistaken. Ethan called Victoria. It was her phone, and she decided to answer it. How could I have stopped her?" Seeing Olivia's unreasonable behavior, I couldn't help but smirk mockingly. Then I decided to make something up. "The real reason Victoria skipped her interview is because of you," I said. Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. "What nonsense are you spouting? How could it be because of me?" I continued. "You didn't approve of her being with Ethan, calling him a worthless bum. Victoria said that if she passed the government job exam, you would oppose their relationship even harder. So to avoid that, she decided to give it all up." Olivia was so stunned by the absurdity of my explanation that she was speechless. The neighbors, now gathered at our door, started to chime in. "Come on, Olivia, stop meddling in the kid's business." "Exactly. Even if Victoria made a mistake, it's not Sincere's fault. What's the point of causing a scene here?" Embarrassed and red-faced, Olivia had no choice but to glare at me one last time before storming off, muttering, "When that girl gets back, I'll break her legs." Over time, the incident faded into the background. That was until 3 months later, when Victoria returned with Ethan by her side. Ethan, to his credit, was undeniably handsome in a rugged, rebellious way. He had the kind of charm that could make the sweet, shy girl in a rom-com blush. Victoria, leaning into his embrace, looked both blissfully happy and slightly nervous. We ran into each other at the edge of town. The moment Victoria saw me, her eyes lit up. "Cinny, this is Ethan," she said, introducing him with a shy smile. Ethan smirked and extended his hand. His eyes gleamed with disdain and triumph. "So you're the guy who grew up with Victoria? She's told me about you. Sorry to break it to you, but we're getting married." He emphasized the word sorry with a tone dripping in mockery, exuding the air of a man who thought he had won. I was taken aback. Marriage? So soon? Neither of them had stable jobs. Where would they even get the money for a wedding? Then I saw Victoria's bashful smile as her hand rested protectively over her stomach. She said, "I'm pregnant. It's been 5 weeks, so I want to get the wedding done first." My heart skipped a beat, a mix of emotions swelling up inside me. Victoria was pregnant again. How was this possible? Especially considering she'd already had 4 abortions because of Ethan. 4 years of dating and 4 abortions. And I had been the one to accompany her to the hospital each time. I still remember the last visit vividly. The doctor had looked at me disapprovingly, assuming I was her boyfriend, and scolded me, "You young couples are being reckless. If this happens again, the woman might not be able to have children anymore." And now Victoria was pregnant with Ethan's child again. My gaze instinctively fell on her stomach, and a wave of indescribable pity washed over me. If this child managed to survive, its fate might be even more unfortunate than the ones before. A mother with a love-obsessed heart, a father drowning in debt, a grandmother blinded by greed, and a family destined to crumble. Yes, Ethan was deeply in debt, so much so that he had been blacklisted by the bank for overdue loans. I wanted to muster a smile, but I couldn't. All I could do was calmly say, "Congratulations, you're going to be parents now. Congratulations." As I brushed past them, I couldn't help but wonder how Victoria would break the news to her mother. On my way back from my grandmother's house on the edge of the village, I passed by Victoria's place. The house was bustling with activity, the courtyard filled with tables set for a feast. Olivia, her mother, was enthusiastically entertaining guests. "Oh, I always knew my son-in-law would turn out to be successful," Olivia boasted, her laughter echoing through the yard. "He's even driving a BMW now, ha ha ha. My Victoria has always been exceptional, and you two make such a perfect couple." It was only then that I noticed the BMW parked in front of the house. Ethan smirked smugly and said, "Mom, you can spend that 20,000 dowry money freely. Victoria won't have to endure any hardships with me." Hearing this, Olivia's face lit up with joy, her grin deepening the wrinkles around her eyes. "I told you," she said gleefully. "I told you not to push Victoria into that civil service exam nonsense. She should have just married Ethan right away. It was that boy from the neighboring family, Cinny, Who put those ideas in her head? But look at her now getting married to someone successful. I can finally rest easy. Watching Olivia's money-hungry demeanor didn't surprise me at all. What puzzled me was how Ethan had suddenly come into so much money. Driving a BMW and even handing over $20,000 up front? When Olivia spotted me passing by, she called out, "Isn't that Cinny? Come on in and join us for the feast." Her tone was smug. I gave her a polite smile and said, "No thanks, Mrs. Lewis, my mom's waiting for me at home." Feigning disappointment, she replied, "All right then, your loss. This food isn't cheap. You know my son-in-law spent a fortune on it. Honestly, all that studying you're doing, what good is it? My daughter didn't go to grad school or take any civil service exams, and she still landed herself a rich husband the next day." News of Victoria's upcoming wedding to Ethan spread like wildfire through the village. Olivia told everyone who would listen about her daughter's wealthy fiancé, the $20,000 dowry, and the BMW he drove. I had my doubts about Ethan's sudden change of fortune, but I didn't care enough to investigate. After all, none of this had anything to do with me anymore. My vacation was ending, and I had to return to work in the city. Before I left, Victoria wanted to see me off, but Ethan stopped her. Why bother seeing him off? He said, "Come on, I'll take you for a spin around the village in the BMW." What happened after that, I don't know. My mom later mentioned over the phone that Victoria had moved to the city with Ethan. "Looks like she's living a good life," she said. After finishing grad school, I passed my exams and secured a position at a top-tier hospital in the city. My dad had passed away from cardiovascular disease, and becoming a doctor had always been my dream. I still remember writing on my high school goal card, to become a life-saving doctor. Now, that dream had become a reality. I thought back to those high school nights when Victoria, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, had asked me, "Cinny, what did you write as your goal? Let's swap cards and see." Her goal card had neat, elegant handwriting that read, "To become a fair and just judge." We had grown up since then. The girl who used to pass me little notes during evening study sessions was no longer around. One day I went to the OB/GYN department to drop off a car key for a college friend, Emma. As I turned the corner, I recognized a familiar figure standing at the doorway of the department. Victoria was there, her arm linked with Ethan's. Ethan, on the other hand, was leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette. His face twisted in irritation. The hallway was filled with pregnant women, all of whom were glaring at him disapprovingly. A young nurse approached him and sternly said, "Sir, please smoke in the designated area. Smoking is prohibited here." Ethan gave her a disdainful look and sneered, "You don't get to tell me what to do. I'll smoke wherever the hell I want." The nurse's face turned red with anger. "This area is full of pregnant women," she said firmly. "Please respect the hospital's rules." Victoria quickly jumped to his defense, her tone aggressive. "I'm pregnant too. If I can tolerate it, why can't they?" The young nurse was left speechless, while the other expectant mothers looked on in shock. Eventually, it took the intervention of a tall man, a husband of one of the pregnant women, who stood at least 6 feet 3 inches, to scare Ethan into leaving. Ethan slinked off toward the stairwell, muttering under his breath, while Victoria hurried to catch up with him. "I told you to come by yourself, but you wouldn't listen," he snapped. "What good am I here for? You're so damn annoying." Victoria's eyes filled with hurt, but she instinctively touched her stomach and swallowed her grievances. She quickened her pace to keep up with him, linking her arm with his once more. "What are you looking at?" Emma's voice snapped me out of my thoughts as she tapped me on the shoulder. I turned my gaze away and forced a smile. "Nothing," I replied. "It's nothing," muttered Ethan, his gaze shifting away from Victoria. He sighed. "Your little childhood friend, huh? Don't even mention it. Her uterine wall is as thin as paper. It's hard to say if she can even carry this pregnancy to term. What does she see in that guy?" He looked so impatient in the examination room earlier. Your little friend was terrified of the checkup but still had to calm him down. I slipped the keys into Ethan's pocket and said calmly, "Respect other people's choices. Maybe they find joy in their own way." I thought I wouldn't run into Victoria again, but as fate would have it, I bumped into her that afternoon when I went downstairs to grab a coffee. Ethan was striding ahead with his hands in his pockets, while Victoria trailed behind, juggling medical records as she tried to keep up. Her hair was a bit disheveled. Seeing me, a flicker of awkwardness crossed her face. "Sin, you work here?" she asked with a small smile. I gave a non-committal glanced at her medical records and asked, "Everything going okay?" Talking about the baby, Victoria's face lit up with a sweet smile. "The baby is healthy," she said. Ethan, on the other hand, snorted disdainfully. "So you're just a lowly doctor, huh?" he remarked, his tone dripping with contempt. Victoria suddenly remembered something and, in a slightly annoyed tone, said, "Sin, the nurses at your hospital are so rude even a measly nurse thinks she can boss my husband around. Can you believe it?" She had the audacity to stop him from smoking. "It's a public space, not her house. Who does she think she is? I think she just wanted an excuse to flirt with my husband because he's so handsome." I suppressed a cold laugh. She knew it was a public space, more specifically, the obstetrics and gynecology department. "Are you seriously telling me you didn't know smoking isn't allowed in hospitals? You're both educated people after all," I said, my tone even. Ethan caught on to my veiled jab. "Who are you calling uneducated? You're just a doctor. What makes you think you're so great?" He sneered arrogantly. I didn't even look at him. Instead, I turned to Victoria and asked, "Are you still preparing for that public service exam? You have a solid foundation." Her expression flickered. "I've put it on hold for now. Studying too much isn't good for the baby, and my husband doesn't want me to overwork myself," she said, tugging awkwardly at Ethan's sleeve. "Let's go, Sin," she said softly as they walked away together. I sipped my cold, bitter coffee, watching them leave. As expected, people make their own choices. Perhaps we used to chase our dreams together, but Victoria stopped when she met Ethan. He's not someone worth relying on, but it's her decision. I glanced at an academic conference invitation on my phone and allowed myself a small smile. Thankfully, I'm not her. I won't stop moving forward, and I won't forget my dreams. It was a year later when I returned to my hometown. During that year, I had gone abroad for further studies and learned a great deal. This time, I came back for my cousin's wedding and managed to attend a reunion with childhood friends before the ceremony. We gathered around the table, a group of old friends who had grown up together but had since gone our separate ways, building careers, starting families. It was rare for us to reunite, and the atmosphere was lively. "Sinny went abroad for a year. He's gotten so much more composed," someone remarked. Out of all of us, only Sincere stayed true to himself, pursuing medical research all the way. Not like me, I had to retake my exams twice before I could even get in. I didn't say much, just listened quietly as everyone exchanged jokes and stories about their struggles over the years. "By the way," someone said, "what about Victoria? It's been years since I last saw her. People at my workplace still talk about how she scored first in the public service exam, but didn't even show up for the interview." The person who spoke had taken the same exam as Victoria that year and ended up getting in because of her withdrawal. Another chimed in, "All that for a man. It's like watching a star fall from the heavens. Sinny, you were closest to her. Have you heard anything about her?" My hand trembled slightly as I poured tea. I forced a smile. "Haven't been in touch for a year. Not sure what's going on." At that moment, my younger cousin walked in, holding a bag of sunflower seeds. Handing them out, she overheard our conversation and leaned in. "Are you talking about Victoria?" "Oh, right. You guys wouldn't know since you've been away. She got scammed. That guy dumped her. She even had to terminate an 8-month pregnancy," she said bluntly. The teacup in my hand tightened. Everyone was shocked. "Didn't she marry some rich guy? I heard her dowry was over 20,000, someone said." My cousin waved her hand, her expression complicated. "Rich? Ha, that guy's money was all borrowed. He's a deadbeat. When he couldn't borrow anymore, he tricked Victoria into taking out loans in her name. Now she's not only single again, but drowning in debt. She's even on a credit blacklist and can't take any government exams anymore." I hadn't realized that the money Ethan flaunted in front of Olivia was borrowed. From my cousin's account, I learned that Ethan had avoided formally marrying Victoria, coaxing her into waiting until after the baby was born. But within 3 months, he had already cheated on her with a naive college girl. When Victoria found out, she was devastated, but finally saw Ethan for who he truly was. She wanted to break up and start over, but Ethan dropped a bombshell. He had used her name to take out over $500,000 in loans. The money had gone to gambling, his mistress, and luxury cars, none of it spent on Victoria. Victoria's family couldn't repay such a large sum of money, and ultimately ended up blacklisted for bad credit. Emma, her cousin, said to me, "Sin, Olivia even went to your house to cause a scene." I frowned. "Mom never told me about that." Emma replied, "I figured Aunt Olivia wouldn't tell you. She was demanding that you lend money to Victoria to pay off her debt. When Victoria couldn't get through to you on the phone, Olivia went straight to your house." "Of course she couldn't reach me," I said. "After we parted ways at the hospital, I blocked all her contact information. I thought we'd never cross paths again." Everyone around sighed wistfully. Once, Victoria had been someone who seemed to shine brightly. But now a layer of dust had settled over her life, and it seemed she was doomed to remain stuck in the mire. The next morning, I went out to grab breakfast and unexpectedly ran into Victoria. I couldn't believe my eyes. The woman standing before me looked like she had aged 10 years. Her once lustrous black hair was now dry and frizzy. Her face bore visible fatigue, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. She had also gained weight, and was now helping out at Olivia's breakfast diner. When she saw me, Victoria froze for a moment. Gradually, a flicker of light returned to her eyes. Olivia, spotting me, lit up like she'd just found a golden ticket. She greeted me enthusiastically. "Oh, sincere you're back. You've done well for yourself these past years. Victoria always talks about you. Go on, catch up." Olivia nudged Victoria with her elbow, signaling her to talk to me. For the first time in a year, we sat down again, this time for a calm conversation. That's when I learned more about what had happened to her. While pregnant, Victoria had wanted to take an exam for a civil service position, but Ethan had been adamantly against it. Still, Victoria secretly signed up. After just 6 weeks of solid studying, she felt ready to take the written exam. But on the way there, Ethan called her, saying he'd gotten into trouble drag racing with friends and needed her to come to the hospital immediately. So she turned her car around and missed yet another opportunity. Victoria wept as she clutched my hand, choking back sobs. "Cinny, I don't know what to do anymore. I've been blacklisted for bad credit and am drowning in debt." Boo-hoo. I quietly pulled my hand away and handed her a cup of hot water. "We're adults now," I said. "You made your choices." Victoria had so many chances to turn things around, but she always picked the most destructive path. Wiping her tears away, she suddenly said, "Cinny, have you always been in love with me?" My eyebrow twitched and a sense of unease crept in. Sure enough, her next words confirmed my suspicion. "Cinny, why don't you marry me? I'm ready to be with you now. I've completely let go of Ethan. I know you've always had feelings for me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have kept urging me to leave him." Looking into her calculating eyes, I was struck by how drastically everything had changed. There was no going back. I frowned, my voice turning cold. "You're overthinking things. The only reason I ever told you to leave Ethan was because I thought he was no good for you." Victoria panicked. "So you've never been in love with me? Why won't you admit it?" Setting my teacup down, I replied evenly. "Any feelings I had when we were younger disappeared with time. Victoria, we're adults now. It's time we took responsibility for our own actions." I grabbed my coat, prepared to leave, but Victoria clung to my sleeve. Gritting her teeth, she blurted out, "Then help me one last time. You're at the hospital, right? Can you get me a fake premarital health check?" I stared at her, puzzled. Victoria's face flushed with a mix of shame and defiance as she confessed. She had undergone 5 abortions and could no longer conceive. The number of past pregnancies would show up on the health check report. She could hide her debts, but the report was something she couldn't fake. She told me about a previous engagement that fell apart when her date saw the report and left without a word. Looking at her now, I realized just how far she had fallen. "I don't have that kind of power," I said flatly. "There's no way around this." Seeing that I wouldn't help her, Victoria shot to her feet and yelled, "Don't you think you bear some responsibility for the way I've turned out? If you had stopped me when Ethan called that day, I wouldn't be in this mess now. Why didn't you stop me?" I paused mid-step, turning back to meet her now contorted face. "If I had stopped you back then," I asked, "and you'd never been able to be with Ethan, would you have hated me for it?" "Of course not," she insisted. "If you'd stopped me, I wouldn't be where I am now. At least I wouldn't be like this. Sincere, this is partly your fault. You should take responsibility for my life." Hearing her say "of course not" nearly made me laugh. In a past life, on the day I died, her venomous curses still echoed in my ears. "You pathetic fool," she had snarled. "You ruined my love life. I hope you rot in hell." She had shoved me into the river with a smile of pure malice. Even before that, from the moment she learned it was me who had blocked Ethan's call, she had hated me relentlessly. She had shown up at my house smashing everything in sight. She had stormed into the hospital screaming that I wasn't fit to be a doctor. And now she had the audacity to claim she wouldn't have hated me and that I should take responsibility for her choices. It was both absurd and laughable. Victoria had always seen me as her backup plan. She'd always known I once had feelings for her, which was why she felt so entitled to manipulate them. But now, even her so-called backup plan had vanished. Without a backward glance, I got into my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Olivia rushing out of the diner, chasing after me. A slap landed on Victoria's arm, accompanied by a scolding. "Useless thing, didn't you say that Cinny from the Sincere family has always liked you? Who else would marry you? Who else would pay off your debts?" Without turning back, I walked away, leaving Victoria sobbing uncontrollably behind me. On the day of my cousin Emma's wedding, I was surprised to see Victoria had also come. She had taken great care in preparing herself, wearing delicate makeup that brought back a hint of her former glory. Yet, the sparkle in her eyes was gone. Emma had met her husband during their travels. Back in college, after being cheated on by a scumbag, Emma vowed never to rely on men. Instead, she focused on her studies, earning her degrees at top schools and building a successful career. Now she had a happy marriage. In terms of appearance and academic talent, Emma wasn't quite as exceptional as Victoria. Even her undergraduate education wasn't as prestigious. But the contrast between their lives on and off the stage was a testament to how Victoria had squandered the promising hand she was dealt. After the wedding, I prepared to leave again. Since starting work, my hometown had become a place I only visited in winter and summer, never in spring or autumn. On the day I left, Victoria was waiting at my doorstep, hesitant and unsure. "Sin, do you know any lawyer friends in Chicago? Could you help me find a job?" she asked, feigning innocence but unable to completely hide her scheming nature. I knew her move to Chicago wasn't just about finding a job. I refused, unwilling to burden my friends with such an unstable, customized bomb. Victoria didn't give up. "Sin, my mom wants to set me up again. She's trying to marry me off to that old man from town," she said sorrowfully, moving closer to me with a pleading look. "Sin, if you don't take me with you, there'll never be another chance." She reached out to hug me, but I frowned and pushed her away. Whether she agreed to the match or not, it was none of my business. Without looking back, I got in my car and drove off, leaving her solitary figure standing in the wind. Later, I settled in Chicago and began a new chapter in my life. After work, I hit the gym and took pottery classes as a way to spice up my routine. Through a coworker's introduction, I met an incredible woman, a stark contrast to Victoria. She was vivacious, bold, and straightforward. As we got to know each other, we developed mutual affection. While we were still in the early stages of exploring our relationship, news about Victoria's latest developments reached me this time through my mom. Victoria was getting married again. Olivia had pressured her into meeting a man over 10 years her senior. The man, divorced with 2 kids, didn't care about Victoria's past. Her abortions were of no concern to him. All he wanted was a young, attractive wife who could take care of him and his children. He even paid $20,000 in dowry, which had Olivia grinning from ear to ear. Victoria changed her phone number and texted me, saying she was marrying someone she didn't love and was in pain. She gave me one last chance, asking if I'd help free her from her misery. I couldn't help but feel exasperated. Even now, she retained that haughty demeanor, as if granting me the privilege of her affection. I unblocked her on social media, and sure enough, her friend request came immediately. She sent me an invitation to her wedding. "Cinny, I wish my first time wearing a wedding dress could have been for you," she messaged. "Do you remember that bridal shop we passed on our way home from school in sophomore year?" I didn't give her a chance to continue her sentimental act. I transferred her some money as a wedding gift and replied simply, "Congratulations on your marriage. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." Victoria immediately sent me a video call request, which I declined. She followed up with dozens of 1-minute voice messages, none of which I listened to before blocking her again. I hadn't planned to attend Victoria's wedding, but when the day arrived, I couldn't resist returning to my hometown. I wanted to see for myself how Victoria, after getting what she wanted, was faring. The wedding was simple and shabby. Walter's 2 kids were running wild, spilling drinks everywhere. Walter himself had no intention of treating Victoria well. To him, the $20,000 was merely the price of a young, pretty housekeeper. When Victoria saw me, she was visibly emotional. During the ceremony, she even hesitated to exchange rings with Walter, only complying when he gave her a threatening look. Later, during the toasts, she seized a moment when Walter wasn't around to approach me secretly. With hope in her eyes, she asked, "Cinny, did you come to take me away?" I smiled faintly and showed her my ring finger, now adorned with an engagement ring. "I'm engaged, Victoria. Congratulations on your wedding. As someone who's watched you grow up, I'm genuinely happy for you." With every word, her face turned paler. She stared intently at my ring, bitterness etched across her features. "How could you be in love with someone else?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You've always liked me, haven't you?" Tears brimmed in her eyes as she whispered, "Cinny, I know she's just a substitute for me. You still have a chance to take me away." I took a step back, my tone icy as I delivered my closing remarks. "I've only ever seen you as a little sister, Victoria. Please respect yourself. I've said my congratulations and now I'll be leaving." Victoria tried to grab me, but Walter suddenly appeared and yanked her back forcefully. His glare was venomous as he growled, "You shameless woman, on your wedding day, you're here flirting with another man? I paid $20,000 for you, so you'd better behave yourself." Meanwhile, his son wet himself and began crying again. Victoria could only swallow her anger and hold back her tears. To coax his son into attending the 70th anniversary celebration of their high school, the event organizers invited numerous accomplished alumni to return for a campus visit. I was among those invited. Upon returning to the school, I encountered many familiar faces from the past. Over the years, they had all become prominent figures in various industries. I also heard that Victoria had been invited, but Walter had insisted she stay home to care for their children and forbade her from attending such gatherings. When this was brought up, our classmates sighed heavily. Someone asked, "How did Victoria end up like this?" Another chimed in, "Back in the day, Sin and Victoria were childhood sweethearts. We all thought you two would end up together. Exactly, even the class beauty from grade 6 once wrote Sin a love letter." I saw Victoria intercept it and assert her claim. I was taken aback. Did someone send me a love letter? I had no recollection of this. Seeing my puzzled expression, the person continued, "Sin, you didn't know? I saw it after gym class. The class beauty was trying to slip the letter into your desk when Victoria stopped her, saying you two were meant to be together." I chuckled in understanding. Victoria had always known everything. She knew I had feelings for her, so she would send subtle, ambiguous signals while feigning innocence, playing coy, and keeping me on the hook. Meanwhile, she enjoyed my help and special treatment without guilt, but couldn't resist the temptations that university life had brought her. How utterly ridiculous. Thankfully, those memories had faded into the past, unable to stir any emotion in me now. While planning my engagement with my girlfriend, we took a short trip back to my hometown. My mother was overjoyed. During lunch, we could hear Olivia from next door yelling angrily amidst the sound of dishes breaking. After my girlfriend left, my mom casually started chatting about how Victoria's family had descended into chaos over the years. My mom shared, That girl Victoria really lost her way. I heard she owes millions of dollars in debt. She even reconnected with that deadbeat ex-boyfriend of hers. She left to meet him, locking her 2 children in the house. One of them knocked over a kettle and scalded his leg. When her husband came home, he almost beat her to death. As she spoke, my mom shook her head. Having watched Victoria grow up, it pained her to see her end up like this. Later, I heard that Walter caught Victoria having an affair with Ethan and demanded a divorce, insisting that the Victoria family return the $20,000 dowry. Not only could they not repay it, but the divorce settlement ended up costing $200,000. It was only then that Walter realized Victoria was drowning in millions of dollars of debt. Enraged, he stormed over to the Victoria household, smashing everything in sight and even slapping Olivia. He shouted, "You people conspired to scam me. This is marriage fraud. Let me make this clear. Those millions of dollars in debt are not shared marital liabilities. I won't pay a dime and you'll return that $20,000 to me." At first, I treated the gossip as mere entertainment. Little did I know that the flames of this mess would soon reach me. Victoria had apparently spun some wild tale to Walter, claiming that the loans Ethan had taken out in her name were actually my doing. Before I could leave town, Walter dragged Victoria to my house, demanding I return the $20,000 dowry he'd paid. He said angrily, "Hand over the dowry, take this conniving, marriage-scamming woman back." I looked at Victoria's guilty expression and smirked. "Is that what you told him?" she pleaded. "Cinny, after all these years, are you really going to watch me be forced into a corner like this?" I replied calmly. "Fine." Before she could launch into her usual manipulative spiel, I cut her off and said decisively, "I'll get the money. Wait here." I went straight to the police station and brought officers back to my house. The moment Victoria saw me return with the police, her face turned deathly pale. I said, "Let the police investigate the truth. First, I have never had any financial or romantic disputes with Ms. Victoria. As for your false accusations and attempt to extort $20,000 from me, I reserve the right to pursue legal action." Walter immediately understood and rushed to placate the officers, offering nervous apologies. He then turned viciously to Victoria and snarled, "If you're lying to me, I'll kill you myself." 3 days after the police opened their investigation, Walter returned home in a rage, only to find Victoria had already packed up and left with a tall man the night before. Security footage confirmed it was Ethan. Walter cursed his misfortune, realizing his $20,000 was gone for good. Under police orders, he was forced to apologize to me. I thought that was the end of it, that Victoria would finally disappear from my life for good. But 6 months later, a murder case made headlines. A man, drowning in debt, forced a woman to do unspeakable things to repay his loans. When she refused, he beat her nearly to death. When the woman tried to call the police, the man stabbed her 3 times. Victoria was rushed to the hospital and narrowly survived, but her nervous system was severely damaged, leaving her completely paralyzed. Knowing full well that Ethan was a bottomless pit of despair, she had still leapt willingly into it. Now, she was paying the price. The case caused a major uproar. Ethan was arrested and sentenced to life in prison after additional crimes from his past came to light. When I visited Victoria in the hospital, she was barely recognizable, frail and gaunt. Upon seeing me, she became agitated and rasped, "Are you here to gloat? This is all your fault. Why didn't you stop me back then? And why didn't you marry me when I begged you to? The mistakes she made, the life she ruined, yet she expects me to bear the consequences." Even now, she stubbornly refuses to reflect, blaming everyone but herself. I nodded slightly. Yes, I was here to watch her downfall. She had cost a life, my brother's life, leaving my family to endure the unbearable pain of losing him. How could I ever let that go? Seeing her reduced to this state now, I finally felt the resentment that had been weighing on my heart begin to dissolve. I said, "People like you, Victoria, even if I had helped you back then, you wouldn't have been grateful. Admit it. You are selfish. What you're facing today is the result of your own actions." As I left the hospital, a light rain began to fall. My newlywed wife stood not far away, holding an umbrella, waiting for me. I smiled and walked toward her. Ahead of me was my future,